So, to kind of sum up this chapter's really kind of brief overview about the different types of trade that are going on as a result of this colonization, we have a couple things that we need to mention here. One, the first one here is that globalization isn't just a 20th century phenomenon. Even though it's a phrase, and we'll talk about this in a much later chapter, even though it's a very modern phrase, it's not really a modern concept. And you want to put down here next to capital B that we can see globalization and put globalization in quotes. We can see globalization and put globalization in quotes as early as the late 12th and 13th centuries. As early as the late 12th and 13th centuries. As soon as the Europeans start to do some long distance trade consistently, technically we have globalization. I mean, if you want to go back, we can go back into ancient times and with the beginning of the Silk Road, and technically, boom, globalization. However, this early modern globalization was on a much slower and smaller scale. So you want to put a little star here by number one. Also, early modern globalization was not yet centered on Western civilizations. In fact, like I told you before, these Western civilizations, namely the Europeans, are kind of behind. They're not as advanced, they're not as sophisticated as what we have going on in China or India or the Ottoman Empire. In fact, they're trying to figure out how to break into those empires and reap some of the cool stuff that they happen to have. You want to put down here next to number two that it will become so after the Industrial Revolution. It will become so after the Industrial Revolution. We're actually going to see the Europeans playing catch up and constantly playing catch up until about the 1750s, give or take a little bit, because it's going to be at that point that the Europeans are going to start to industrialize. And for them, that's going to be the big game changer. That's going to be when they simply go off like a Roman candle and they're going to rapidly surpass all of these other civilizations to become the dominant focal point globally. We also have this early modern economic life is going to be largely pre-industrial. Duh, we're not industrialized yet. Once we get there, all of a sudden the economic life will center around that industrialization. And finally, early modern globalization was tied to empire building and also slavery. And the reason for this, and the last note here, I want you to put down here next to number four, this is because this is because of inefficiency. This is because of inefficiency. Now, the catch is going to be that it's going to stay inefficient for quite some time. And even when it becomes more efficient, it's still going to be so grounded in empire building and slavery that it's actually going to almost become, or those two things are going to almost become like a cultural phenomenon. And it's going to take great acts and a long period of time to kind of break that cycle of empire building and slavery.